Fun fact, for some reason that I didn't bother to look up in her original appearance, Scarlet Witch had a green costume for some reason. So that's interesting. Okay, let's do the video. There was a tweet that made the rounds the other day that's since been deleted for some reason, but the gist of it was a picture of Ellie, the main character from the game series The Last of Us, and it asked a question. Can you name a character who has had a harder time than her? Now, I have not played this game. I'm sure it is as great as everyone says, but zombie survivalist stuff was never my thing. But I understand that this character has to deal with a lot of people around her dying and stuff because it's a zombie thing. But I took it as a challenge. I thought, what character that I know a lot about is that tortured? Who has to deal with that much hardship? And eventually, like every thought I have, I ended up at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I tried to figure out which character from the MCU has had it the most difficult. And I don't remember exactly what made me think of her, but as far as I can reason, no character has had a more difficult time than Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She is an unbelievably tragic character, in a way that's kind of out of the ordinary for this series. And that thought brought me to this conclusion that I wanted to share in a video with you guys, especially since we are entering the longest drought between Marvel Cinematic Universe movies since 2010. And that thought is this. Wanda Maximoff is the most interesting character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. She is the individual character that I am the most excited to see in the future. She never was before. I always kind of liked her, but she was never my favorite character. But when you really get down to it, for 4 reasons, I think there's a case to be made that the Scarlet Witch is the most interesting character in the MCU. Starting with reason number 1, like I said, she's had a rough time. I want to go over kind of what's happened to her in these movies. So in Age of Ultron, where she is introduced, she is part of some sort of Hydra experiment that gives her superpowers. We learn her backstory. Their parents were killed in a war that used Stark weapons. Then Wanda and her twin brother Pietro team up with the evil robot, cause a lot of damage, destruction, eventually have a change of heart. But then her brother Pietro dies, and her home country of Sokovia is completely destroyed. So she's alone. But she makes some friends with the Avengers, Hawkeye, Captain America, the Vision, and they form a budding relationship, and hey, maybe she has a future on these Avengers. But then, she is a part of the accident that puts into motion the Sokovia Accords at the beginning of Captain America Civil War. She feels incredibly guilty. Tony looks at her as a threat. He makes Vision, her new robot boyfriend guy, imprison her at Avengers HQ. She is forced to beat up her robot boyfriend guy to leave Avengers HQ. And then she goes and fights a bunch of the Avengers, former friends probably, at least Natasha. They have a working relationship together, forced to fight each other. Wanda's team loses the fight. She is imprisoned, taken to the raft. And I guess they are for a couple of days, probably not too long, because it seems like Captain America rescues them pretty immediately after he beats Iron Man. But then she's forced to go on the run. But hey, she gets to spend some time with her robot boyfriend secretly. And then he gets stabbed, and then he is dying, and the stone that powers him may be the thing that's going to destroy the universe, so she is forced to consider killing him. She says she's not going to do it, but then, when they eventually lose the fight, she is forced to kill her robot boyfriend. Now, it is a tragic, yet beautiful moment. She kills him with his permission. It's the best way that could possibly have gone. Until she gets smacked by Thanos, he turns back time and kills her robot boyfriend again by just ripping the stone out of his head. Wanda fails to stop Thanos and save everyone. He snaps, she gets dusted, and then she comes back and Vision is still dead. Almost everyone else that was killed is brought back in some capacity. Loki's gonna be around later. Gamora from the past is now the present Gamora. But there is no indication that they have made a working version of Vision or anything like that. On top of that, the people that she probably did get along with the most, besides Hawkeye, were Captain America, Falcon, and Black Widow, and Captain America and Black Widow are both dead. So it seems like, as you can see at the funeral, Wanda has aligned herself with Falcon and Bucky. Like, those are her two best friends. And I think that is a humongous stretch. So this character has had every member of her family killed in front of her, her entire home country killed, she has been public enemy #1, she killed her robot boyfriend, then someone else killed her robot boyfriend, and then she died. She is completely alone, and besides being an Avenger, she doesn't really have a place anymore. Since it's unclear what the Avengers even are right now, Bucky and Falcon, I guess, are going to be doing their own thing. But as far as original Avengers are concerned, Hulk's still around, Hawkeye's probably retiring again. You got guys like War Machine, who are still alive, but who knows how active they're going to be in these movies in the future. The big players in this universe right now are T'Challa, King of Wakanda, Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, who has to fight off characters from the Dark Dimension and stuff like that, Captain Marvel, who's probably going to go back into space, the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor also going back into space, Ant-Man, Spider-Man doing their own smaller things. Where does she fit into that? This character has lost everything, and she's just kind of on her own, which is why I think WandaVision has so much potential to be interesting. There is no logical next step for that character, which means anything can happen. So the #2 reason I think Wanda is the most interesting character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe currently, besides having lost everything, she also has all of the power. I think you can make the case that Wanda is the most powerful main character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe currently. Now, I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/NanoVMovies. I think I already plugged it, but whatever, let's do it again. Also plug the podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. I'm sure you've seen, if you're on Twitter, those images where they'll put the Avengers in groups of money. It's like Doctor Strange is $4, Iron Man and Thor are $5. And then it's like, you have $15 to make a group that can fight Thanos. And if I remember correctly, she is in the $3 range, which is insane, because Wanda is almost definitely the strongest character in the MCU right now. Besides the smaller things she did, stopped a train, killed some Ultron bots, contained an explosion, held up a control tower, she fought Proxima Midnight, did a pretty good job, and then eventually killed her. She was able to hold off Thanos, who had 5 Infinity Stones, while she used her powers to destroy the 6th Infinity Stone, and she was able to do that successfully. And then in Endgame, Wanda beat up Thanos so bad that he was forced to sacrifice his own troops so she didn't just rip him in half. Say what you will about Thor, Captain Marvel, Hulk, other characters that are very, very powerful, Doctor Strange. The reason I think Wanda is the most interesting one going forward, all of those characters have had their powers for a very long time. Thor has been doing this for more than 1,000 years. Captain Marvel has been an intergalactic crime fighter for the last 30 years. Doctor Strange has been at this for a while. It's unclear exactly when his movie takes place, and who knows what Hulk's up to. But it seems like these characters are at their peak. They have as much control over their powers as we've seen in the comics. Whereas Scarlet Witch has only been at this for like 3 years, and she barely has any control over her powers. She's able to levitate stuff and use energy blasts to push people away. But if Scarlet Witch is going to be anything like the Scarlet Witch from the comics, that is nowhere near her power ceiling. She's able to do so many different things. Besides all of the physical stuff, she can also warp people's minds, she has control over probability, and she has the ability to alter reality. Now, a lot of people have said, a more powerful character doesn't necessarily make a more compelling character. That's a lot of the problems people have had with Superman in the past. I've heard people say the same thing about Captain Marvel. They're so powerful, they could solve all of the problems. So how are you going to create a story where the stakes aren't leveled by the fact that this character can solve any problem with their powers? The thing about Wanda that's so interesting, and you get a little bit of this in Infinity War and in Endgame, yes, she is very powerful, but she is also very vulnerable. If you think about it in terms of games, Wanda is kind of a glass cannon. According to TV tropes, in short, they can dish it out, but they can't take it. The glass cannon is characterized by insane attack power coupled by pathetic defensive ability. So think about this in terms of the fight between Wanda and Thanos, more so in Infinity War. She's able to cause a lot of damage, but she's not invulnerable. She could take a hit. So she is not definitely going to survive any encounter. She has to be smart with the way she uses her powers. Otherwise, she is in about as much danger as any other character. On top of that, she's also very emotionally vulnerable because of the place she is in at this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. To the extent that, and I think we'll get into this a little bit in the Disney Plus series WandaVision, it's not even clear if she's a good or bad guy. She is both an asset in some situations and a liability in others, because of how powerful and unstable she is. And finally, the third reason I believe Wanda is the most interesting character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward: Wanda is an integral part of a bunch of memorable comic storylines that have not been turned into movies or television shows yet. Storylines that I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe will explore eventually, which will put her square at the center of most of these stories. And I'm not even talking about how it definitely seems like the terrific Tom King Vision run will be an inspiration for WandaVision, the new Disney Plus show, which I am incredibly excited for. I'm thinking even further into the future. So first of all, she's been part of the West Coast Avengers, which I think will show up eventually, kind of an offshoot of the Avengers, and a group called ForceWorks, which was recently rebooted in Marvel Comics, which usually maybe leads you to believe that that's something that might happen in the movies in the future too. The idea behind ForceWorks was that they were a group of superheroes who were going to proactively take care of threats by using Scarlet Witch's, at that point, kind of future-seeing, probability-reading powers. Which sounds very similar to the plot for Civil War II, where the Marvel Comics universe got into an argument over what's essentially Minority Report. So it would make sense that if they wanted to do a second Civil War in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you could set it around a character being able to sense future threats, and that character might be Wanda. And speaking of Wanda and threats, Wanda herself is a potentially interesting threat in the future. Wanda was the main antagonist in a storyline called Avengers Disassembled, which led directly into something called House of M, an event where Wanda warped reality and created not necessarily an alternate universe because it was still the universe, but just reworked the universe so that mutants were the dominant race on Earth, and she wiped everyone's mind. Eventually, heroes figured out what was going on and were able to reverse it, which led to the No More Mutants line that Wanda is so famous for saying, which wiped away 90% of the mutants on the planet. Speaking of mutants, Wanda is also a big part of the Avengers vs. X-Men event from a couple of years back. In that story, the Phoenix Force was coming back to Earth, and the X-Men and the Avengers got into an argument over how to deal with that. And a big player in that story eventually was Wanda, a character who was not only an X-Men and an Avenger, but an incredibly powerful mutant, one of the only mutants powerful enough to understand what Hope Summers was going through. This is all to say, if one of the goals of phases 4, 5, and beyond is to integrate the Fox characters like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a character that already exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that connects all of those characters together is Scarlet Witch. She is Magneto's daughter, allegedly. It turns out she's actually not Magneto's daughter, and she is instead a creation of a character called the High Evolutionary, who will definitely show up eventually. She has been a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants that will almost certainly fight the X-Men in the future. She's worked with and against Doctor Doom, one of the most powerful sorcerers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Wanda's also going to play a part in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So maybe that means Doctor Strange is going to train her to use her powers, or maybe she will be responsible for opening up the Marvel Cinematic Universe multiverse and bringing in the X-Men. Maybe not the characters we know from the Fox X-Men movies played by those actors, but some version of those characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She is also the mother of 2 members of the Young Avengers. Canonically, it's a little complicated because it turned out it was a trick done by the devil, which led to an amazing comic panel where the devil came and absorbed Wanda's babies into his arms. But eventually, those characters popped up again in the Marvel Comics universe. Their names were Wiccan and Speed. So Wanda is heavily connected to the Young Avengers. The only part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Wanda isn't explicitly that connected to is the cosmic side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Although, I have a feeling in the future we'll probably see the High Evolutionary, and it could be possible that the experiments conducted on Wanda and Pietro had something to do with the experiments done by the High Evolutionary to evolve humanity or something like that. Basically, in conclusion, Wanda Maximoff is the most interesting character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not only has she been through the ringer, and she has proved that she is potentially one of the most powerful characters in the entire universe, and she is one of the most vulnerable characters in the entire universe, she is also an integral part of some of the stories that will definitely be at the heart of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the future. Oh, and one more thing. If you would like to learn how to edit videos, either to more convincingly edit around a second plot device that got lost in some sort of creative decision, or, I don't know, just to make cool videos, I would highly recommend looking at Jordy Vanderput's classes on editing in Premiere Pro and After Effects on this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers membership with meaning. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. There are classes in productivity, design, writing, video editing, so much more. Like I always recommend fellow YouTuber Thomas Frank's class called Productivity Masterclass, How to Build Habits That Last, if you want to become more organized and productive, because who doesn't want to become more organized and productive? Skillshare offers classes designed for real life so you can move your creative journey forward without putting your life on hold. You can learn and grow with short classes, fit your busy routine. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when compared to other classes and workshops. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. And if you would like to join the millions of people already learning on Skillshare today, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in this description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so you can explore your own creativity, explore new skills, deepen existing passions, get lost in creativity with Skillshare's online classes. What you find might just surprise and inspire you. As always, I have to give a humongous thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel on Patreon, because you guys are the best. If you want to see your name up here, get access to videos early, watch my whiteboard videos live, other cool stuff, throw in literally any amount of money at patreon.com/NandoVMovies. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. Also, definitely listen to my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, where every week me and my friends DJ and Diggins pick apart a piece of pop culture by looking exclusively at the details. We've done episodes on a lot of the Marvel movies, Fast and Furious movies. We did an episode on Artemis Fowl that was super funny, and that's your tease for the next video. It's probably going to be on Artemis Fowl. I love doing it. I'm so grateful to everybody that came onto the live stream where we watched both National Treasure movies. You can find that on this channel, like that video, and it exists as kind of a commentary track that you can watch both of those videos with us. So thank you to everybody that came onto that stream. Thank you to everybody that donated. And you can listen to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are at Nitpicking Pod on Twitter. Last thing, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is NandoVMovies. That's where I post updates on videos, updates on podcasts, pictures, fun stuff like that. Also, I made a TikTok recently because it's 2020 and that's what you do, which is fine. It's fun. It's something. So if you use TikTok, my handle is NandoVMovies there as well. So find me, follow me, watch my TikToks, do whatever you do. That's all I got. I'll see you next time.